Hello and welcome to the Danesh Show. I'm Eva Danesh. Today we are joined by the president of the Beverly Hills Board of Education, Isabel Hacker. President Hacker has been a member of our board for the past 5 years and was just elected president this past December. Today we'll get an inside look into the current issues facing our board and what we can expect for our future. Isabel, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me, Eva.
So can you tell me a little bit about where you grew up and your life as a student?
So I grew up in Huntington Park, California, and I went to Bell High School. Actually, as a student, I was very involved in student government. I started off by being class president my sophomore year, and then again my junior year and my senior year. And then I went to college, to UC Riverside, and I actually when I was a junior there, I ran for office for Senate, for UC Riverside Senate, and I actually did get into Senate, and I became the vice chair just by default because I had the second most votes than the president, and that was interesting and fun.
And how did you get involved in the Board of Education?
So as a parent, I was just very active with reading, information about that was coming out, that was being disseminated to parents. I frequently watched board meetings, and I also was very involved as the council treasurer, and just throughout PTA being involved and just trying to support our schools. And I took interest in the position, and I thought that there possibly could be an opportunity for me to serve in a position where I could have some more success in having a voice and representing parents who possibly thought at the time that there needed to be a direction for the district. And so I took that step, and the rest is history.
So you've been on the board for the past 5 years. How does a typical board member's term look like?
Typically, that's a great question. It typically takes 4 years, and what happened was I ran for a four-year term, and I would say that very early on, around 2017, I want to say it was February, the board decided there was an item on the agenda to talk about possibly giving board members an extra year so that we could move elections here in Beverly Hills for school board into a even year. When I ran in 2015, and so the vote was 3-2. I voted against it, and Mr. Spitz did as well. I was my thought is that people elected me for 4 years, not for 5. And so I was willing to take a year off my term and take it back to the voters of Beverly Hills to decide. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. As I said, the vote was 3-2, and so that's why I'm serving for a 5th year.
And for those watching, what is the job of the Board of Education within our district?
The Board of Education as a whole sets the vision and the mission for the district. We also are responsible for setting a budget and adopting a budget for the district so that we can have that in the years, we project 2 years out. So we have the current year, and then we project 2 years out in addition to the present budget. We also, besides setting agenda, the budget, and the vision of the district, it should be vision and mission, and then the budget, we also hire the superintendent. And beyond that, really, we're not supposed to micromanage, although I know there's some that would think that we do, or in the past that has happened. And so basically we just are there to adopt policy and to make sure that policy is enforced through administration and through management.
And you were just elected president, so as president, how have your responsibilities grown?
The president's position really is, the only difference is that you are the spokesperson for the actual board, and you also set the agenda. And so you have a little bit more communication, I think, one-on-one directly with the superintendent on average, but not too significant. Beyond that, I would not say there's anything different than being a regular board member.
And you're also a parent, as you mentioned previously. You have 3 boys in our district.
Yes.
How have those experiences really reflected in how you make decisions on the board or how you approach certain issues?
I really try to leave my children out of it. I think because that would be a very narrow scope of a lens. I try to put myself, when there's issues, I try to think, how would the general population react to this information, or what would go well with parents? So I don't really like talking about my kids in that regard or bringing them into it. I understand we're parents first and last, but public education is there's so many layers in public education. I think that my kids only represent a very small drop of what we encompass as a district and how we serve all students. So I try to look at it from a lens of, that child, my friend's child, my neighbor's child, the person down the street, and anything else that I learn in that process of being a servant or, serving our community as a board member.
And moving on to some of the issues. So safety is a very big concern for not only students, but also teachers and parents. And in the recent culture of our society, unfortunately, there's been a lot of school shootings and stuff going on in schools that nobody likes to hear about. So what measures are being taken by our school district to make sure that every kid is safe and really feels like they belong here?
First of all, I think I want to make sure that parents understand who are watching this, and anyone who is part of our school community, that safety and security are a predominant number one issue for our school board and our administration. And in answering your question, I will say that in the last year and a half, 2 years, this board, the prior board and this board, have taken new measures and enforced new measures. If you've noticed in the last 2 years now, we hired NASDAQ, who is a consultant, a company that is armed guards, right? We have armed guards at all of our 5 schools. Well, no longer El Rodeo, since El Rodeo is now offline, but the 4 schools. In addition to that, we have a different approach that involves a different tier of security, which is our classified staff. We have staff that has been deployed to 4 schools where they offer security, on-site security. Along those measures, we also have a director of security who oversees the operation. And so I think as a school district, we have done a considerable amount of work and improvement in that area. And I think every parent should feel better about sending their kids in this environment. As you said, we're living in a different time where unfortunately we have these situations and we need to address these by being proactive and being prepared. And I think that Beverly Hills Unified has really done that. And in addition to that, I'm very proud to say that we've done a very thorough analysis of our campuses, and that BHPD, our city, has been a partner in coordinating and within the communication of that entire process.
So within the past couple years, Metro has been creating plans and now actually building a subway station right next to our high school, right outside of campus. Mm-hmm. And a lot of parents and students are worried about that. So how has that been going? How has the response been from our board, from our district, and how can people really feel about the issue now?
Well, I want to say that our administration has been at the forefront with the board. We're informed, and there's information that I'm not able to disclose, but I will say this, that there is communication that is ongoing and regularly between both the MTA and the school district, and we're monitoring very closely the operation behind us of our campus here at the high school. And so we're monitoring anything having to do with sound, vibration, and of course the air quality. And that is monitored daily. We have consultants, we've hired the best that there is. And again, security and safety at all levels is a predominant issue for the school board and our administration. And I'm happy to report that there is no imminent, I need to help. Any danger at this point, and we are monitoring that constantly, and there's ongoing communication with Metro. Mm-hmm. So we are working out the details, and the oil wells is a big component of something that this board has also been involved with since I've been on the school board. We are, as you know, we have this oil well process that we're mitigating. we're abandoning the oil wells in its proper way, and I'm happy to report that we're on schedule. There's 19 wells, we're on well 16, and that is going to be completed. That entire process will be abandoned. We'll be abandoning all the oil wells this summer, so we're on schedule. And CalGEM is an oversight group that is looking at the districts abandoning, how we abandon these oil wells is being very much not overlooked. The oversight is being shared through CalGEM, which should make everyone feel better because their expertise is making sure that we do this the proper way. And so we're very happy about that partnership and their on-site presence with their expertise.
So we really are in good hands right now. Everybody should feel safe
Yeah.
and know that they're being monitored.
Yeah, it's a complicated situation. Who would have thought that Beverly Hills Unified or Beverly Hills High would be in this situation, when Beverly Hills High School started, back many, many years ago. But here we are, and we're, again, safety and security are number one issues for the board to make sure that we resolve. And I think that we have the best team in place to do that.
And as you mentioned a little earlier, El Rodeo, a former K-8 school in our district, is currently completely under construction. There are no students there. What is that construction looking like now? When can we be looking at a reopening of the school, and what can we expect when that happens?
So a lot of what's going on at El Rodeo, it was just an easier situation to move students away so that we can really advance the projects accordingly. And if students were there, those projects would be a little compromised just because you have to deal with more safety issues having students around the actual school. So my understanding is that we're making progress in making sure that we stay on the plan. We are going to be having a study session in the near future to really examine where we are specifically. I look forward to maybe having you come to our study session and you can learn more with us as we get that progress report.
And the high school's construction actually also recently restarted. It was stalled for a couple years, but we're back at it now.
Yes, and it's exciting. And B1 and B2 are going to be coming alive in April 2021. And
That's
so
very soon.
That is going to really change, I think, the environment of the school and what it feels like. Because for many years now, maybe throughout your entire tenure.
Yeah, since my freshman year.
Since my kids have been here, we have been living under the conditions that we see. But could you imagine if you have 2 buildings coming live? That will be tremendous for the environment, for the spirit of the school. Additionally, one of the things that gets overlooked at, because it's not part of our construction plan under the bond program, is Building A. Building A is what houses most of your students right now, your cafeteria, that area. The board has made a conscious decision to put some TLC into Building A, and over the summer, we're going to do we're going to clean the floors. There's going to be new paint, and it will really provide a cleaner, fresh feel for that building. So with that and buildings B1 and B2 coming online shortly, I think that you'll start to see a different vibe around the school district, the high school. And I think it's going to be positive. And so a lot of things are now progressing really quickly for the high school. That's the short answer of what's happening with our construction plan. So I'm sure you're probably wondering, how long is it going to take to do the entire school? And the honest answer for that, from today to the end, is about 5 years. And so everything will take time, and that's really what the timeline is. And I would encourage you to visit the website that I gave you. The master plan is on there, and there's a lot of information that I think the parents should be able to access, and students as well.
And would there be a way for KBEV or Highlights or school newspaper to get an inside look into the progress of construction, and we can report back to our community members?
So you know what? I'm going to ask Don Blake. I hope he's watching. I will definitely go back and ask for that, and I will take you with me if I have to.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I would love that.
Thank you. So as El Rodeo closed, we had the reconfiguration of our now 3 K-5 schools and now 1 big middle school.
Yes.
How has that looked? What was the process of making that happen this year? It's been a thing for 8 months now.
So that was a huge undertaking when we took that vote, and I'm very proud of that vote. But it also was kind of like buying your first house, and I'm sure you haven't bought your first house yet. But as a person who did, it's something that you think about in the middle of the night. Mm-hmm. But what has been amazing about that transition is that the physical work that was done to arrange and to organize that transition of opening up a middle school was, I think, very seamless. And that's always a good thing. And I believe that we owe a large sum of gratitude to the contractors, to the staff, the facilities, the maintenance and operations. All those people work together, carrying out various responsibilities and duties to make sure that occurred on a timely manner, and it did. And so the instructional part of the house, as it relates to what happens with students every day, which is the most important, I think that by having this reconfiguration, and I've heard that it has been a very positive and well-received change for our school district. There are some things that we still need to iron out. But this has been, like you said, only 7 months in the being of the making, and so we are making progress to recalibrate and make sure that we refocus and identify the changes that need to be done, so that we get this on track and it's better and it looks and it feels better and it's an adjustment. It's a huge adjustment, this reconfiguration. But I think Mr. Kevin Allen, the principal, has done an amazing job. I think he has a wonderful set of strong assistant principals there that are helping him. And the parent community there is vibrant. And there's something, I mean, have you gone in there? I went
Yeah,
there.
so as a leader on our robotics team, I was able to bring a lot of the programs we do for robotics to just one middle school and have everybody there getting the benefits of it. So I think, at least from that perspective, we've already seen benefits to what the students can receive.
And I think that students now, being together collectively, it's kind of like Beverly Hills High School. Mm-hmm. Students are beginning to find out, hey, I'm good at this. I'm not so good at this, which is great. That's part of learning. But they can come into the high school with a focus of what they do want to do and don't want to do. And I think the high school is obviously a great place to do that, right? To find out who you are and to try things and then decide you want to continue or not continue to do those things. But isn't it great that now we have an opportunity being offered for 6th, 7th, and 8th, mm-hmm. and that we are there's a wealth of opportunities being offered, educational opportunities, and I think it'll make Beverly Hills Unified School District stronger in the future years to come.
And when reconfiguration was in the talks, there was a lot of parents who are really hesitant about this change. What would be your response to them now, and have you heard any difference in their opinions?
In their response. Look, I think change for human beings is always difficult. It's difficult for me too, even as a board member. Even if I took that vote, it didn't mean that I was just cocky and saying, hey, everything's going to be great. No, I don't think that was the approach from anyone in the board if you spoke to them personally. I think there was a lot of anxiety from all of us. But I would say that most parents, I've had parents come and say to me, Isabel, this actually worked out pretty good. I didn't realize. I always take things with a grain of salt. And I'm not a cheerleader. I don't profess to be like an optimist entirely. I think I like to be somewhere in the middle, a realist, right? So I listen, and I know that there's some adjustments that need to be made. And I trust that our administration at the middle school is able to do those adjustments. One of the positive things that has happened as a result of reconfiguration is that I understand that we are one of the schools that has one of the districts with the most counselors now, because we made a commitment to put a counselor into the middle school. And I think that's a wonderful resource for students and parents to have, something that didn't exist in the past. And additionally to that, we have 3 vice principals there, which is a tremendous resource of operation for from a management perspective. And the rich number of teachers that are there to teach, the core curriculum, the academics, but also the electives is really a great combination of an educational team that I know wasn't there before.
And so you just spoke about a lot of the support systems that we can see in our middle school. What other support systems are available there and in our high school that our students should really learn to take advantage of?
So at the high school, I would say we have programs like this, right? I mean, how lucky are we? How many high schools do we know that have programs like this? And the success that have come out of these programs. Cindy Dubin is one person who I know is working tirelessly in this district to establish pathways and to connect, technical education and provide alternative opportunities for our students to take advantage of, like internships, being mentored, and just having experience in the work industry. And I think that those are connecting activities that provide for a richer experience for students who go through Beverly. I know that I do recognize that the facilities in the school right now with construction is a negative. I understand that as a parent. I hear it from students all the time. I hear it from parents. But unfortunately, that's what happens when you go through a remodeling process in anyone's private home or in an infrastructure like this. So I would say to parents, continue to support us by sending your students here. And, let's pay attention to the curriculum. We have a lot of great teachers here, right? I mean, I would say that as a parent, and I will speak about me being as a parent, I'm so grateful that my kids went through the Beverly Hills Unified School District. I'm so convinced that they're ready for that next level of being prepared for college. And it's not because of me. I think it's because of the education that they've experienced in our classrooms. It's been rich.
Yeah. I can attest to that. I know there are so many amazing teachers. We're so lucky to have them.
Yes, I agree.
So one of the things that's been changing in recent years is technology in our schools. We've gotten a huge boost. We've been lucky enough to give freshmen through seniors their own personal laptops to take home and bring at school. And then I believe middle schoolers get those as well. So what has been the response from teachers and students from these new technological advancements?
So it's interesting because we just had a study session a few weeks ago where the board was basically given an update as to where we are with technology. 3 years ago, when I first started my tenure on the board, the issue was, how are we going to pay for these one-to-one devices? And so I asked the question, rhetorically, I would say. Back then, I wasn't even onto anything. It was very much a rhetorical question. Can we pay for it out of Measure E? And so Measure E had been with us since 2008. So let's put that in perspective. 2008, I'm on the board in 2016, right? I actually take office. And this had come to our attention because there was a little bit of disparity between the schools as to who had the devices and who didn't. And so we were trying to resolve that and make it, have parity among students and access to technology. So I remember asking, well, can we pay for it out of Measure E? So they went and asked council, and they said, yes, you can. And then the rest is history, right? It's been a progression in making sure that we have one-to-one. So now we have it. And in that study session, we were told, here's the challenges with your 3-year plan that you adopted 3 years ago. And here are the milestones that you have achieved. And so what I understand is that they're going to come back to us in the next few weeks with a new plan for technology for our district so that we can continue to stay on course, and really start to see technology influence and have it in every classroom. And there's a lot of things that happen in that process, right? Staff development, coordination, training, integration of curriculum. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen. But we have to stay on target, and we have to get organized. And I think a plan is where you first start. So you had asked a very specific question. What are the students thinking about this change with technology? Mr. D'Amico, who is our technology director, recently convened he had I wouldn't say a focus group, but he had a meeting with students from ASB. And there was about 15 students, I understand. And he asked these questions that you just asked me. And so the takeaway was that the students are very excited about the one-to-one. They believe that the environment offers for an opportunity to go paperless, which they love. They also love the access, right, of having an opportunity to do their homework online and to be connected with the process or a system that is expected of them within the classroom environment. And additionally, they like testing on those computers because it's much more easier, much more cohesive. Some of the challenges or weaknesses that they also spoke about was the fact that they're somewhat frustrated that there is not an area that we've identified to print. So if they have like homework or an assignment, that there's not a designated place on campus to go and make that happen. So that's something that I just that wasn't shared in our study session, I want to make it clear, but it was just a conversation that I had with Mr. D'Amico. He also expressed to me that one of the findings that he had, that he walked away with from having this interaction with students, was that students are also finding, while they're very excited to have the integration of technology, they think that in their observation, not every classroom is doing it, right? But they're so smart that they understand that that process is going to take time. And so the students recognize that this is the first step in making that process happen. But it's going to take some time. And again, that's where training and staff development and coordination, it really has to be the teachers who are the leaders in this, because they're the ones that are in the front of the classroom. So without them, it just can't happen. But it is a process, and I think everyone recognizes that.
And regarding things that are a little bit of a process, this past year,
Yes.
this past year, something that caused a lot of tension around our school was
Schoology.
Schoology, yes, and then Jupyter grades, and then now Google Classroom / Aries.
Right.
So can you tell me about how that process was like on the Board of Education side and the district side, and what's being implemented now?
So I'm going to talk a little bit about my parents here, because my parents taught me one thing, and they said when there's a mistake or you've done something that hasn't been right, you need to learn how to apologize, right? I think it's a very important lesson for all of us. For me anyways, it is. And so I'm going to use that lesson that my parents said. I want to apologize. I know that Schoology was, let's just call it what it was. I think it was a disaster, right? Let's be very honest. I think it was. What I do want to say is that it was never adopted by the Board of Education. But the process was in place. I think the intent was good, but I don't think that I don't think that it was a good match for our school and for the needs of our students and especially our teachers. And so I think that the good thing that came out of this problem was that we were able to identify and recognize that this wasn't working. And so we stopped it. But I understand that it caused a lot of anxiety that should never have occurred. And so I do recognize that, Eva, and it's a fair question from you.
Thank you for that.
No, absolutely. So I love Jupyter as a parent. I know students love it, and I know teachers love it, right? So why are we moving into Google? So again, I'm a board member. I set policy. I'm not an expert in education. But I have to believe that if there is a transition that's going to take place where we're going to be integrating technology to its fullest, that we need to be prepared. And so my understanding is that Jupyter, although it does a lot of things, from a management perspective, it's very limited. So they are trying to get ahead of that, and they've identified Google as an opportunity to be able to address the needs of the district as we move forward into fully integrating technology into our classrooms and our schools. So that's the short answer and the only answer I have for you, but it is going to be a process. It's not going to happen overnight. And Mr. D'Amico, and I was very pleased to hear from him in that he expressed how he looks forward to talking to teachers and really having them be part of this process. And they have to be, right? Because again, they are the ones who are the soldiers who are taking, our students and teaching them on a day-to-day basis. So their voice matters. And I think it's important to identify, what kind of things can we best support so that we get it right. And I think there's commitment for us to do that.
So thank you for that.
Yes.
Switching gears a little bit, you talk constantly about how you heard the parents' response and you hear the teacher response. What to you is the importance of community engagement and making sure that our board members are really involved in our community and know what they want?
So this is a small community, right? Beverly Hills is really interesting. You go to the market and you inevitably will see teachers, you will see staff members, you will see students. Everywhere I go, sometimes I'm on vacation and I see people from the community. So it's so interesting and it's dynamic. Not just in Beverly Hills, right? So I think that the board has obviously access to the community just by virtue of being in the community. But when I became president, I did believe that I wanted to just try to have coffees or just so that I can have more of a personal interaction with the community and invite board members to be part of that. 2 board members, not 3, 2. And so I'm happy to report that I've had 1 coffee, and I'm going to be having one at the end of March when we come back. And I'll have one in April. And so my commitment to trying to just not really, I can't, I'm not an administrator. I'm not, the purpose of the coffees is not to hear or to micromanage or to solve issues per se. But I think it's important as elected officials that we do have an opportunity to have an interface with our community. I think our community appreciates those one-to-one opportunities, and I just wanted to make it public. So I have a commitment to that, and I think I'm more effective when I invite board members to participate in those activities that they want to. But I think, I look forward to maybe having you come to one of those coffees. Maybe I can make one just for students. I'm open to any suggestions.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes.
So another thing changing in the 2021 school year is our calendar.
Sure.
It's getting a bit of a shift. So we're starting later and ending later. Can you speak a little bit to that for us, please?
Sure. So unfortunately, this year, the way the calendar was the information for the calendar and how they came to the calendar that we just adopted was handled a little differently from years past, from practice. And the board only got to see it when it had already been agreed to by the 2 entities, right? So at that point, it was really too late to vote against the calendar simply because it had an implication for the PSAT the following day, which would have been Wednesday. I can't remember, it was in October. And so, but there was an agreement that we were going to try to work it out with the union leadership. Unfortunately, we just didn't agree to the terms of those discussions, and we needed to move forward with, the school year. And again, we already had adopted that calendar that board members don't like. But the good news about this, and I'm very optimistic in this regard, is that we are going to try to get that right in the next calendar. And that's the short end of the answer to that.
And another concern that parents have is every morning and every pickup time in the afternoon, there is so much congestion outside of the schools. And we know that there is a limited space. We can't scooch over the houses. But what kind of reaction is that? What kind of work is being taken to kind of alleviate some of the traffic?
So we continue to work with our traffic from the City of Beverly Hills and our BHPD. But it is an issue a lot. It is, if you look at the city and the impact of traffic, some of it because of Metro, right, on Wilshire, it has impacted the streets of Beverly Hills. And we're beginning to see that residue coming over as we drop off our students. I mean, I as a parent who drops off, I see that happening more so around the high school. And I have to believe, and I experience that it's the impact that Wilshire is undergoing with a lot of the construction. But I think that we're going to continue to make progress in this regard, just simply because it's an issue that we have identified, and I know that Dr. Breggy is on it. Mm-hmm. And again, we're also having construction at the high school, so that only adds to the situation. But hopefully we can get it resolved by next year.
And so a lot of families really move into the district or move into the city with the intent of taking their kids into the district. What message do you have for families who are maybe thinking about moving into Beverly Hills and sending their kids to our schools?
I would say that our K-5 schools do an exceptional job of making sure that our students are are educated and ready to transition from one grade to the other. With the middle school in place now, I believe that that transition from 5th grade to 6th, 7th, and 8th to the middle school is going to be stronger. And as I said earlier, students having options at their fingertips and the opportunities that come with having programming that is in one area, one school. There's parity, there's access, there's opportunity for growth outside and within the school district, within the school, with the middle school setting. And our students are going to be much more able to transition into the 11th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, the high school. Additionally, I think with the support groups that we have through the PTA and through BHUSD, who are two of our biggest partners, I think, in this process of educating our children here at BHUSD, parents have an opportunity to be involved, both as leaders of our parent community or on the receiving end of the benefits that these two organizations bring to our district. We have coffees with the principals, we have orientations, we have open house, we have back to school night, we have parent conferences. So I think Beverly Hills Unified does a very, very good job in those elementary school years and even the middle school, in preparing our students, our families, to take those steps as they go forward. Our students go forward and become young adults like yourself, so they can become independent and advocate for themselves, right? Because we can't always be like the hovering over our children. That's not healthy, that's not correct, and it's not a role that I think parents, I mean, of course that's our instinct, but really to educate our children, we would hope that at some point they can advocate for themselves and be independent. That's going to be required of them when they go to college and become productive adults in this society. So again, I hate talking about my kids, but I will say that as a parent, I'm very pleased with the education that Beverly Hills Unified has provided for my kids. And I believe in it, and I'm so honored that my kids had this opportunity here. It's rich, it's good, it's strong, and they're going to be fine, I think, in the future, as you are and as every student is.
So thank you for all that you do for all of our students. And as my last question, I like to ask this to all of my guests. What is the best advice you have ever received?
Be yourself, and know who you are, so that regardless of what situation you walk into, you know how you walked in and how you want to walk out. I would say that.
I love that.
Yes.
Well, Isabel, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching The Danesh Show. For KBEV 6, I'm Eva Danesh. Thank you for watching this episode of The Danesh Show. For more content like this, subscribe right over here, and for more episodes, click right over here.